風よ吹けクロノア風になれクロノア To celebrate its 25th anniversary, the KLONOA series is back. What was I saying the other day about the influx of remasters these days? Well, here we are with yet another one. It's KLONOA Phantasy Reverie Series, which releases today on the Nintendo Switch. Now, if you'd like to try it out for yourself, there is a full demo which covers both the first and second games. We're going to go over the performance of those, have a look at the frame rates, the visual changes, the quality of the visuals, and also how it performs in docked and handheld modes. I'll finish off with a little bit about the games and what you can expect. I'm Mark Walker, welcome back to SwitchUp. Remember, save 10% on any of your eShop games, and if you're buying physicals, you can save some money on those as well. All the links and information are in the description. How does it perform on the Nintendo Switch? Well, let's find out. KLONOA Phantasy Reverie Series consists of both the first game, Daughter Phantomile, which was released on the PlayStation, and KLONOA 2, Lunatia's Veil, which came in 2001 and was released on the PlayStation 2. Daughter Phantomile here is based sensibly on the Wii remake from Payon, which came in 2008. Let's look at the price before we go into the frame rates. The game's going to release physically for around about £44.99 here in the UK, but it can be had for less than that already. The digital release is £44.99, which seems a little high to me, and for remastered games to have new cosmetic DLC, such as the Pac-Man head you can see here, it does irk me a little bit, I'm not going to lie. On to performance then. On other platforms, as you'd expect, it's running at 60 frames per second and 4K resolution. On the Nintendo Switch, we have native resolution, so it's looking to be 1080p, and it also targets 60 frames per second, but it does not reach that target. And this is the biggest issue for the game. It cannot reach 60 frames per second at all times. This is running on the Unity engine, and as we know, that can be a little bit troublesome on the Nintendo Switch. I mean, actually, what engine isn't troublesome on the Switch at this point? Unity, at least on Switch, is prone to some frame pacing issues, and that's evident here throughout all of our frame rate capture. When we look at the first game, you're looking at high 50s, sometimes 60, sometimes a little lower, but the fluctuations really do cause issues with that consistent frame pacing. It means that despite being relatively high, the game feels quite stuttery. It can actually make you feel a little bit nauseous, and as it never seems to dip below 50, as I've said before, surely it could be a more sensible decision to lock it at 50. To me, that would at least be the preferable option over inconsistencies that cause these stutters. Now, I know, there's going to be the guy in the comments that says you shouldn't recommend that a company lowers frame rates. No, ideally they would spend the time and get this working at 60. There's absolutely no reason why it can't, but as it is right now, I would prefer that. An area we haven't discussed before, but one I think's quite important considering some of the ports we've had recently and the releases, is the controller input latency. This is one area where Monkeycraft have done a decent job. They're very responsive and they don't suffer from that V-Sync delay that you can sometimes get. This is really important in a platform game, and I'm pleased to see it. Now, the experience is fully 3D, and on the Switch looks to be rendered at native resolution. It can actually look quite beautiful. Load times are also very respectable. I didn't see any that were longer than 5 to 10 seconds, and transitions within the stages were almost instantaneous. The remaster saw a complete reworking of the original soundtrack and audio. Both games feature the co-op mode that was first introduced in Lunatia's Veil, and there are some quality of life improvements like being able to fast skip through dialogue or skip this entirely, and that visual quality does hold up reasonably well, particularly in comparison to some of the other Switch games in this genre. One visual compromise is a lack of anti-aliasing, although I know this was the same on PlayStation 5 and other platforms. Thankfully, this is partially mitigated by native resolution, but you will see some stepping and jaggy edges on the edges of the main character, as well as some items in the world. While the overall image quality has been improved and textures are better than the initial release, I can't be entirely sure, but it doesn't look like those have all been completely remade. Some of them suffer the dreaded stretch texture look. When we jump over to the sequel then, it fares similarly in terms of performance. Once again, frame rates are targeting 60, but they don't quite reach it. It becomes particularly evident in the areas where it can maintain 60, and it's quite jarring when it loses that. It's funny because if you're not someone that's particularly sensitive to frame rates, then you won't really have an issue. Certainly kids playing this are just going to enjoy it for what it is. An almost 30-year-old lesson to modern games like Balan Wonderworld on how platforming games should work. In handheld mode, running at native again at 720p and again targeting 60 frames per second, it really is a delight on that OLED screen. It's an incredibly vibrant series that just pops. The smaller scale makes it more difficult to notice the jaggy edges and also perhaps masks some of the stutter. Now, as far as gameplay goes, they actually do hold up remarkably well. They're not quite one button, these are actually two button. You've got a jump and an attack. There are similarities to things like Kirby here. You can draw enemies in, hold them for a while and then propel them out to help you jump to higher places. Some offer buffs such as being able to hover, and the level design is incredibly good. There are sometimes alternative paths you can take through stages. These tend to be for secret items or collectibles, but they're tightly and fairly designed. And the difficulty tends to come from optional areas, so pulling off more difficult moves to reach those secrets. As with any platformer worth its salt, there are sections where you ride on vehicles, and it was one of the games that used its fully 3D nature while having the character move along a 2D plane to its advantage, but also with its gameplay. Things like moving this pendulum to smash the blocks, they're really innovative ideas, and there are many times where you'll need to fire enemies either towards or away from the camera. Now, if you're a physical collector and you're going to go for this, then do make sure you save yourself a bit of money. Buy it on the Play Asia store. We've got a discount in the description there that you can use, and we get a little kickback, but I still think the price is too high. On the flip side of that, if you're a digital collector, man, £44.99 is expensive. They are very enjoyable games, but if handheld isn't important to you, then maybe pick it up somewhere where it doesn't stutter. As I say, you can check this all out for yourself by just downloading the free demo that's live today. That will surely be the easiest way to decide. If you do go digitally, then make sure you use our code SwitchUp to save 10% on your eShop vouchers over at switchup.gg. Thanks to all of you that enjoy the content. I'm working currently on a new all patched up series. If you have any suggestions for that, just pop them down in the comments. Have a lovely weekend, and as always, for all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!